biggest issue I have with my newsletter is I want to write it. Like I love writing. That's my number one thing that gives me a lot of energy. I freaking hate thinking about and dealing with any of the like business or growth side of the newsletter. The business side is very easy to outsource. There's like, I mean, you know, there's ad agencies now. ConvertKit has an ad network where they'll manage the whole back end of your newsletter. They'll bring in sponsors for it. They'll send you the money. It's like super, super easy. It's amazing. Nathan crushed it getting that thing out there. But the like growth side of newsletters is completely untouched. There's no one out there that I've been able to find that is like a full suite growth service for your newsletter. And when I say growth suite, I literally mean like I want someone thinking about my landing pages and optimizing that. I want someone thinking about referral networks, newsletter swaps. I want someone thinking about paid ads, you know, SEO for my website to drive subs, how to optimize it across my different social channels. Literally just someone that's sitting around thinking about growth for the newsletter so that I can just focus on writing. And I'd literally be willing to pay. I mean, my willingness to pay at the size of newsletter that I'm at now, and given what newsletter subs are worth to me, is very high. Like I would easily pay 10 grand a month to someone that could figure that out and do it in one place, on top of whatever I would spend on paid ads, et cetera.
Do you think that thing Workweek is going to do that?
No, dude. I mean, like, I don't know how much you guys know about work. I don't know a whole ton about Workweek, but from what I can tell, it's mostly the like back end services of newsletters. And there's another one called Smooth Ops that I think spun out from Morning Brew. Didn't Workweek spun out of The Hustle, didn't it?
Not spun out. They worked for
me. The
guy
guy was there. Yeah, same thing with the Morning Brew, Smooth Ops. Like my understanding of all of those is that they're much more focused on like helping you monetize and you know, managing your like business so that you can focus on writing. I literally just want someone that just all they think about all day, like an absolute killer, that just all they think about is growth. I mean, Sean, did you have someone, I mean, or was Ben like that at Milk Road?
My guy was, right, Sean?
No. Ben was the guy who woke up every day and just said, how do we get more subscribers? And like, you know, that was his mission and that's what he did. So, you know, but you know, we needed, it's like,
but if you don't have a Ben,
that was like more of a company. Whereas like, you know, most people's personal things are not like, you're at a size where there's just not that many newsletters that are at your size that can afford to pay for something like that. You know, how many people could afford to pay 10K per month to try to drive growth?
So I think a lot. So my hypothesis is, so I tweeted this and a bunch of people were like replying saying they would pay for it in different ways. My hypothesis is that there's a ton of like successful founders and entrepreneurs that want to build a newsletter, an owned list, or like an essay type thing, like what Sam Altman or Paul Graham have, where they have, you know, SEO and newsletter, you know, like emails that are coming to them, and they're willing to pay a lot because they actually have been successful and just have a bunch of money. They don't need it to be revenue generating at the outset. And I think I bet if you developed some sort of core competency and basically like say someone partnered with me and proved it out over like 2-3 months. Hey, I drove this, and then we're able to use me as a case study. Maybe I own a percentage of it, you know, on the upside. And so I'm incented to like bring them new referrals. I bet you could grow a pretty big business there quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you only need like 20 clients basically to make this like, you know, worth your while.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a personal business, you don't even need 20 clients. I mean, you can get 10 at $5 a month or 10 at 10 a month. And you have like, you know, it's 80+% margin probably business if you're just running it simple.
But are you having the headache of having a service business?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's definitely not productized.
Like I've thought about starting an agency like maybe 20 times in my life. And then literally 5 minutes later, every single time I'm like, don't go in the service business. Don't go in the service business. Now we have several friends that have done it, right? Like, you know, Andrew Wilkinson did it with MetaLab. Our buddy Greg is doing a great job with it with late checkout. You're doing it now with your thing. So, you know, maybe I have the wrong bias here. What do you think?
I mean, what you have to do is hire a great operator. If you want to be the like owner of some percentage of it and not have the headaches, you got to just recruit a killer operator who's going to run all of it. I mean, that's what we're doing with the spin out agency that we're doing now around LinkedIn stuff, is like just going to hire someone exceptional and give them like 15% of the ups and just say like, you're a hustler, you're a killer. You can get a whole ton of
that was awesome.
What, man? That's my finance genes, man.
Never heard that. That was awesome.
Really? Oh, that's the no name PE guy coming out of me right there.
Yeah, give him I thought a PE guy was a guy who likes, you know, dodgeball and recess. Like that's what PE is to me.
Earlier he was talking about beta, and I was like, "You're talking about nerds? I don't understand what the hell is beta."
Beta's a good thing.
Yeah, hold on. He was talking about beta as like a a good thing. I was like, I don't understand what that means.
You're kind of a low beta guy, actually, Sam. If I think about it, like you're kind of like even keel. Like I feel like I know within a band what I'm going to get out of you any given day.
I think you're complimenting me, but I don't.
You show up. You tweeted about that recently. You hate when people say they're going to do something and then not do it. Like so you take pride in being low beta. Like people know what they can expect from you on a given day.
By the way, what a stupid thing to tweet. Yeah, like I like long walks on the beach and movies. Like who likes somebody who says they're going to do something and doesn't do it? What an obvious tweet.
Yeah. First of all, give me the clout that I deserve. Like, don't hate. What did Sahil say? Don't hate. Number two, I'm not saying it's like people who say they're afraid of heights. It's like, yeah, everyone's afraid of heights, but like you just like some people that just like it's like what's high on your list. Gotcha. I don't think that I don't know, like there's a lot of things that annoy you, Sean, that don't annoy me and vice versa.
Like what?
What's one thing that annoys you, Sean, that you don't think annoys Sam?
I don't think anything annoys him.
Nothing annoys me. That's the beauty of it.
Wait, really? You don't think anything bothers you?
Nah, things.
Yeah, now I want to dig into this. What bothers you?
I guess what bothers me is only usually things with myself. So like if I find myself in a bad mood or like getting annoyed with something or getting bothered by something or getting impatient with something, that's actually the thing that bothers me. I'm like, oh man, I let this get to me. Like for like that second, that's the thing that gets to me, right? So usually it's not something that frustrates me or annoys me. It's usually either impatience or boredom or feeling cranky or tired or something like that. You know, like, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be that way. That bothers me.
So for years, I used to say that Sean, I was like, I think I'm going to have a pretty steady path to wealth creation. And Sean, you either going to like, it's not going to be as extreme. I think we joked around with Mr. Beast where like, 6 out of 10 times, if you were reborn, you would be a degenerate, like gambler or drug addict. And like four out of 10 times you'd be successful. With Sean, it's not that bad, but it's like, you're the type of guy who can roll the dice and like, you might actually hit it big. There's a good chance, or you might like just be only okay for a long time. And now, so I was basically saying, yeah, your likelihood, I think, of being a billionaire is actually higher than mine. But your likelihood of being like a degenerate is probably also higher.
Yeah, high beta.
Yeah, but here's the problem with Sean. I've just realized over the past handful of months, he is too emotionally healthy to probably be incredibly successful. He has this problem that few people have, which is he's just happy. You know what I mean? He's got this, it's just this massive...
It depends on your definition of success, man. I would argue that Sean is the most successful then, man. If he's like super happy.
Yeah, if you define success by these superficial things like happiness and well-being and all that bullshit.
The stupid stuff.
Yeah, I will say that Sean has had more like high highs and low lows this year, at least from my like perceived view of Sean through our group text. And he's totally unfazed. Like Sean, I mean, look, flashback to like, like crypto crash, right? I'm like, yo, Sean's down bad. I'm texting Sam. I'm like, is Sean okay? Like Sean's texting the group chat totally fine. I'm like, yo, is Sean broke? Like, is Sean getting margin called right now? Like, I have no idea what's going on. And then Sean's like, yo, I sold all my stock. And I was like, holy shit, Sean sold the bottom. Like market's roaring in June. And then the market crashes again. And Sean's a genius trader that like, sold the top of the market or something. This dude is just like.
Does that stuff bother you at all, Sean? Like, first of all, what prior to selling a business recently, but what was your net worth down just a significant amount?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's hard to calculate that sort of thing. So, but let's say liquid stuff. So not counting equity in companies, it's probably down 50% or something like that. I mean, most of the investments, I didn't keep much cash. This was my investment strategy pre 2022, right? So my investment strategy pre 2022 was cash is trash. And, fist bumps all around to my boys who thought cash was trash. Then, oh, dude, is there a safer investment than Amazon? This blue chipper, right? Like, that's my version of safety is, I'm going to put it in some boring tech companies, the Amazons, Googles, Facebooks of the world. What could go wrong? And then lastly, a huge amount of startups that were getting marked up like crazy, fist bumps all around, getting my ups was going ups. And then the last thing was crypto. And I was like, oh, well, see, your boy's a genius and moved a huge percentage of his net worth into, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And, and then this Luna shit that's popping. I'm doing great. So, that was me before. So basically every single thing I had invested in has gone, what's that thing, like my terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Like I was basically having that for this year in terms of investments, but whatever.
Did it bother you?
Well, I didn't like losing money, but like, did I let it bother me? No. Like, I basically took steps. No, I took steps. I was like, okay, well, what matters here? Like, okay, let me just first get perspective. Am I in any kind of hardship? Is my family doing poor? No, they're good. They're fine. Right. Secondly, what should I actually do? Do I need to make some adjustments? Was I wrong about certain things, or should I do some things to give myself more comfort? So why did I sell? I basically margin called myself. I was like, you know what? I think things are going to go lower and I don't want to sweat this all the time. So I'm going to sell this amount here so that I don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to move more into cash and I'm going to book this loss because I think that'll offset against some gains that I have this year. And, then I won't have to think about this stuff for a little while. I will focus on these other things that I want to be focusing on because I'm not a trader. I'm not a investment genius. So that's not going to be my goal. And then, just, I don't know. I never got my happiness from when it was going up. So why would I get my sadness from when it's going down? It didn't make sense to me.
You must have felt good when Luna, I think you originally plugged Luna in Milk Road at 40. And I bought some. I was like, yo, Sean's pretty smart. He knows this crypto shit hands down. And so I bought a bag. I'm not really a degenerate crypto guy, but I bought a bag of Luna and that shit went up to 118. And I was like, yo, Sean is my God. Sean, what other ideas do you have? And then we were supposed to interview on our old pod. We were supposed to interview Do Kwon. I'd hit him up on Twitter. He's supposed to come on the pod on a Thursday. And on that Sunday, Luna had been wavering, it had come down to 80 or something. And I get an email from his assistant that just says, unfortunately, Do will have to reschedule the interview for this Thursday. And I'm sitting in bed and I'm like, I got a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. I don't know what this is. So I go downstairs and I sell my entire bag at I don't know, a small gain, not good. I sell the whole thing. Next morning I wake up and that shit's at 5. The whole thing unraveled overnight. And then I get an email from his assistant saying he's going to have to cancel the interview. And I'm like, yeah, well, this dude has a red notice out for him. No shit. He's not coming on our podcast at this point.
Yeah. That was a bad day. I was on vacation. I was in Hawaii with my family and I'm watching and I'm I'm not even at my computer. I can't even get to my crypto. It's not on my laptop or whatever. So I'm like, well, couldn't make a move if I wanted to. So I guess I'll just lose all this money here and, just enjoy this vacation. There's nothing else I could do at this point.
You were remarkably cool about it. I remember texting with you that day. The framework you've talked about in the past that I love around this stuff is your local versus tourist thing. I think that's so good of tourists freak out when the seasons change and just bounce.
Yeah.
And locals are aware that there are seasons and that, it comes in swings and they're aware of the environment so they can stick it out and be fine through it. I've always just thought there's a third one, which is the stubborn local, the dude that lives in the coastal village and is oh, global warming's not real. Right. And then he's fucking underwater and drowning. And he's global warming's not real as he drowns. And so I'm always just how do you make sure that you don't go from being the local and you're proud of being a local to the stubborn local that just sits there until you die?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And I remember with startups, this was always the question because you'll hear a story Pinterest had no traction for over a year and then finally started to work because he walked into an Apple store and started putting Pinterest as a default homepage on these, he hustled, he was determined. And it's oh, okay, got it. So determination, just keep going, even when all the data is telling you that this ain't working. And then there's the exact other advice, which is yo, you got to be super data driven, feedback oriented. You got to listen to the market. All that matters is, are you making something people want? And if you have no users, you got to make adjustments. You got to pivot. And so the hardest question as a founder is to know, am I being the right kind of stubborn, right? So am I being stubborn because I'm right and I need to, just tweak, just make small adjustments and just stay at it, be determined and be persistent? Or am I banging my head against the wall and I need to listen to the signals and I need to be changing my mind? And nobody can give the generic advice about when to do what. It's super context dependent, super circumstance dependent. Same thing with investing, right? Am I? Should I still believe in something? Even do I believe in Facebook stock now that it's getting crushed? Right. And for me, I went and bought more recently because I was what do I believe about this company, and has that changed? And so the tourist versus local, right, is you got to ask yourself does the thing I believed about this, has that changed? Do I have new information that makes me update my thinking here? am I holding on to this position just so that I don't feel like I'm wrong, right? Like, am I willing to accept being wrong? You got to ask yourself all these questions and be able to be honest with yourself. And
Has that changed with crypto?
Has what? Sorry?
Has your opinion of crypto changed and your conviction?
No, my opinions and my conviction has stayed the same, but that's about crypto as a whole, right? Then on each specific maybe project or coin, you might have like a slightly different opinion. It definitely.
What's one thing that you think is bullshit now that you didn't think was bullshit a year and a half ago?
So I'll give you an example where that's not true. Then I'll give you an example where that's true. So the not true one is like, let's take Luna for example. The bet on Luna was always knowing that there's this. The way it was architected was this thing is going to rocket up because the sort of what they call the Ponzonomics, right? Like the game theory incentive. But people don't understand. Like basically, it's just like a series of economic incentives, and so the incentives were aligned such that this thing should go up during when as certain participants behave a certain way. And from the beginning, there was always these blog posts out there about what does the death cycle look like. So what if this reversed course? Would this not, because Luna's the collateral, would it not cause it to collapse really fast? And the question was like, will that happen? Won't that happen? So even when you invest in it at the beginning, we wrote our little investment memo to ourselves about like, here's our one pager, why we think this is a good idea and why we think this could go horribly wrong. When it crashed, it wasn't like something we had never thought of. It was, oh yeah, that downside scenario we talked about, that's exactly what happened, right? Like basically there was a giant sell pressure that caused that cascading down cycle. Yep, that we always thought that could happen. We had hoped it wouldn't happen. We had thought that maybe there was there would be a way to put buy pressure back against it, but nope, it wasn't going to work. And so this is a very fast example of basically just because it turned out bad doesn't mean that doesn't mean I changed my position, because actually at the beginning we said, well, here's why I'm not putting my entire net worth into this, right? I put 250K into it. That's not like a massive bet for me. It's a solid size bet, right? So it's like, I put an appropriately sized bet because I thought it had upside and I thought there was some key risks with it. The thing that I would say I've changed my opinion most on is I thought, man, if people start to worry about inflation and they look at, man, I have the same 100K in my bank, but it just doesn't buy me the same amount it used to, right? They'll realize like people will become more aware that the money they have is diminishing, the cash they have, the US dollars they have is diminishing in value, that they will probably look to go to a monetary system that doesn't have that problem. And so the idea that Bitcoin will do well if people start to, if inflation becomes something that people are more and more worried about with the US dollar. And that hasn't happened. Inflation got as bad as it's ever been, but people's response was more conservative than aggressive. People did not make a change to the Bitcoin monetary system, which would not have that problem. They sort of stuck with it, and actually the US dollars gained strength because other currencies got crushed even worse. And so the dollars gained strength. So that was one that I had thought that this is what would happen. And it makes me reassess, was my logic incorrect or something else? What did I get wrong about this idea that in a high inflation environment, Bitcoin should be something that people start moving more into?
I mean, the Bitcoin one is actually pretty interesting, Sean, because I've thought about that a lot too. Is there something just like in the segmentation of how the price went up that is impacting that? Because I still think basically my assumption of why that didn't happen, like why that, scenario of high inflation and people flood into this, is that most of the price increase was actually just driven by this like number go up, crazy, loose monetary policy. People just pump into speculative, high risk assets. And then it wasn't really driven by like believers like you who underlying were like, oh, there's really good fundamentals. The technology really makes sense driving it up. It was mostly just like my random friends who were like, haha, Bitcoin number go up. This is great. And then they freaked out when it went the other direction and pulled out. Interest rates rise and you pull out. I wonder whether like if you segmented it somehow of like the true underlying technology believers, my guess would be that the picture would look different. Like people that really are like thinking about the technology and thinking about the underlying kind of like monetary policy that exists on the network. My guess would be those people think that this is a great time to be accumulating and buying.
Yeah, I think you're right. But basically it's just in my mind, it was like a very simple picture. It was like, you're playing one game, and the rules of this game are that the bank gives you some money. It's a game of Monopoly where the bank gives you some money, but every year your money becomes worth a little bit less by design. They're trying to make it 2 or 3% worse per year, But sometimes if it gets 10% worse per year, right? Or 9% worse per year, right? That's the game is set up that way. And hey, there's this other new edition of Monopoly that came out where that doesn't happen to your money. My assumption was like, people will just start to move to the new edition because they're not going to like when their money becomes less valuable over time. But I don't think that's the message that's gone across. It was basically Bitcoin's how you get rich, or Bitcoin's how you lose your money, and that's the narrative that actually like played out because it was more aggressive. But Bitcoin will make you rich was an easier sell to people.
Yeah.
And it was also the reason why they'll start to sell their Bitcoin when they feel like, Bitcoin's crashing.